Why, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your hosting guide, Zollin Ironshield, here on Voice of the Rings. Hope you're all having a great and wonderful day in the middle of wherever you are. And today, here are the release notes. Huh. Well, that's what it says. But we're going to be talking about Update 46.1 release notes for 3 new instances we're going to cover here in this that's coming out today. All right, 3 new instances, 2 6-mans, 1 3-man. All right, and then we are also have the first phase of the UI scaling starting to roll out. Everyone's been talking about UI scaling forever. They've been wanting this, so the devs are starting to deliver on it. We appreciate it, devs. So here we go. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today as well. We're also going to talk about a lot of the class updates. There's a few class updates for the Minstrel and the Guardian and a couple other big things. So we're going to go through all of that. So I'll give you a little preview here at the beginning because I'd like to, let you guys know what we're going to talk about. There's some stuff with quests and combat, but so we're going to get some quest updates. Maybe we'll get the one quest fixed. Looking around. We'll look through it in a minute. But basically we're going to cover all of this today. So the big things are going to be, we're going to have some UI scaling options updated. We're going to have some brand new instances, which I'm very excited about. That is going to be quite fun. So let's go ahead and read through it and see what we got here. And I will do my best to be your hosting guide as always and describe what is going on. So let's get into it. All right. So special notes, 3 new Kingdoms of Harad instances have arrived. So every time they drop a new expansion, they don't always drop the brand new instances with it. That's kind of been the way they've always done it because they put in first the story mode and the new regions and the rep system, and you kind of can do that for a few weeks. And then they drop in the instances, the 3-man stuff. And then a couple months later, usually, I don't know exactly when, I'm not going to promise any months because I don't know, you get the raid, right? And it kind of scales your gear slowly as you go. So right now you have the rep gear and stuff, which I have a whole guide video on it if you guys need it. What you need to get to kind of prep for the 6-mans and the 3-mans. But the Kingdoms of Harad stand at a crossroads, their rivalry sharpening as greater threats gather strength. Gandalf has come with a warning of darkness rising in the south. The Tharduth, which are the undead monsters from Morgoth, ancient servants of Morgoth, rise once more, harnessing powers that could unmake the balance of Middle-earth. So, let's see if I can pronounce these names. Here we go, guys. Ikel Nebi. I would think it's Nebi, right? I guess we'll find out. Ikel Nebi. Usually there's a person that talks at the beginning of the instance and sometimes mentions its name. We'll see. When you jump in, there's like a little voice, right? Little intro. The Fallen Palace. All right. So what will the abbreviation be? FP, probably, right? Let's run FP. No doubt. People will probably drop off the unless there's something that used to be called FP. But usually whatever the newest content is, people call it that. Little side note for those who care. 6-player instance. The Palace of Ikel Nebi is the crown jewel of Imaxdul. Okay, sweet. So this is going to be inside. This will kind of continue where the story left off on those little side story things. So we finished the main Song of Waves and Wind in this expansion already, but we basically now are getting hints into the next story. So there were side story plots that followed it really well in the questing, and they kind of just abruptly stop. And that was because the story is going to continue into the instances. All right. Hidden in the background of the palace life, Thorthril, the Entangler, Tharduth of Damurdur, quietly began working her enchantments upon the minds of its inhabitants. Now, with soldiers of Mizadi's alliance at the palace doorstep, she asserts final control over the place. So, she's going to try to take over with her whole undead magical evilness, and we're going to have to stop her. Pretty self-explanatory storyline, but that's cool. It'll be fun. Next 6-man, we have Kothrau. Probably how you say it. Kothrau, the Wailing Hold. 6-player instance overlooking Damurdur. Kothrau serves as a stronghold for those who wish to subjugate those within Ansharu. Faron and Radgog, which, by the way, is the ranger, one of the not rangers, he's one of the Athelian rangers, I believe, from Gondor, not a ranger with Aragorn, from my memory, have tasked you with entering this stronghold and defeating the sorcerers Umbatha and the cruel Utugi leader, Radakul. The hope is that with the defeat of these cruel monsters, it will break the hold on those under their influence. This 6-person instance has 3 bosses encounters located in the Wailing Hold, a fortress in Ansharu. Cool. All right. That sounds awesome. The Treasure Caves of Hurum Kana. 3-player instance. Okay. So our last 3-player instance we had was the one with the big scorpion, which I had its name in my mind and then it just like deleted right now. Oh my gosh, it's annoying. But anyway, there was another 3-man we had before. So the Treasure Caves of Harun Kana, or Kena. Yeah. In the Forgotten Caves of Hurun Kena, a scoundrel makes his home. The self-styled Brigand King, Barat the Bold, strikes at caravans and travels on the nearby Great Road. The door wards of Zajana have tasked you with bringing Barlat to justice. But what secrets could the caves and Barlat be hiding deep in Huraman Kana? I have a feeling he will not be the main boss, but we'll see. Cool. These instances are accessible to level 160 characters and have acquired access to the Kingdoms of Harad expansion. So you will have to have the Kingdoms of Harad expansion. This is an obvious, of course. This is how we worked with the previous 5 expansions. Tier 1 and 2 of these instances are now available. Tier 3 of the new instances arrives at noon on February 12th. Okay? So now again, this is going to be released on the 4th. So these patch notes were dropped early, all right? But if you're watching this video, I have dropped the video on the 4th, so it is good for you. It's happening today, okay? They just dropped it early for us to look at. Okay. The deeds of the charge leading the charge is available until 3 a.m. Eastern on March 19th. You can learn more about the Kings of Harad at LOTRO.com if you want to purchase the expansion for yourself. You can access Instance Finder using Control-J. Yep, throughout the main menu button. That's, okay, classic. So that's something, this is something that's always fun. You can get a cool little title. I believe that is leading the charge on the 19th. So pretty much, I believe you have to beat it on Tier 3. That's crazy to beat it on Tier 3 by the 19th. So wait, you beat it on Tier 3 on the 19th? I think it's Tier 3 you have to beat it on the 19th. Unless that deed just goes to everybody starting on the 4th, then that's not unreasonable. But if it starts on the 12th to the 19th, and you have to beat Tier 3, I don't know if you could do that with the gear. Like, it's possible. It's definitely possible, but it's kind of like, wow. All right, if that's the case, it may just be beat Tier 1 plus, and then you get the title, which would be totally reasonable. All right, let's talk about UI scaling. All right, you guys, I know how many people have asked me in the comment section about UI scaling and graphical updates. Yes, there has been graphical updates happening. There was a little bit of a thing last year where people were like, what is this new thing about the whole like graphical engine rework? That was a big rumor. That was never a thing, guys. Someone like made a comment about that and people were like, everyone started like, parroting it over and over and over in all the different media. That happens. But then because of people heard that wasn't a thing, they thought there weren't any updates. They were making graphical updates. They always are. If you go back to some of the old regions, it's gorgeous what they've done with some of the areas and locations. Since I played when I was a little kid in this game, things look 10 times better than they did back then. I'm telling you, all right? There has been some massive updates with the older areas as well. The new areas look fantastic. But anyway, it's a little easier with the new areas because they can do stuff as they're making it right then, instead of going back and like redoing older stuff. But they've done a lot of texture updates, graphic updates, flora updates, and bloom as they call it. I think it's bloom, or is that the lighting? But little stuff. Anyway, we're moving on. Let's UI scaling. UI scaling is something we needed for a while. 2K works pretty nice for my screen, but we all know that 4K is way too tiny. We also know something that's always been hard is our mouse. You can see my mouse right now. This is just my computer 2K. It's really small, right? When you're in LOTRO and you're trying to click on things, now that can be really, really challenging, right? Well, guess what? They are adding a UI scaling for the cursor. I know it seems like such a simple little thing, but this is awesome. So very excited about that. Yeah, very, very excited about that. There are some plugins to like change what your mouse looks like, blah, blah, blah. But this is nice. I definitely like it when it's just built into the game. You can just do the little scroll and check how you want, and then you can save your little /UI command. If you don't know how to do that, it's /UI space layout space. You usually write save and then space your name, or you go UI/layout, or sorry, /UI space layout space load space your name that you saved, and you can send it to any character how you have your screen set up. I have a guide on that if you need it, but it's a really nice little command to know. But this is going to be really awesome, the cursor, especially if you're doing an instance that has very like light colors. For example, the background of this. See my mouse? Oh, where'd it go? Oh no, it's it's like you can see it, but if you're moving really fast where you're fighting, you're not focusing on the mouse, you're focusing on your targets, and you're like, I need to click on something. Where did my mouse go? It's a little annoying, especially the recent Snowbluff. What's his name? The giant. For the Yule event, it's all snowy and everything's white, and it's really hard to find your mouse. So this is going to be really nice. We're also going to have some global scaling things, again, for kind of scaling up all UI together. Some of these are already the same. Character creation, there's going to be, this is really cool. So update 46.1 includes an addition of a new user interface scaling feature of the game. Access these new UI settings in the tab of the options menu. Scaling is currently supported for the cursor, more than 50 individual UI elements, and a global UI setting. Additionally, many full-screen UI elements have been updated to support widescreen displays without stretching, including the login screen. Ooh, okay. We'll see how that looks. I'm curious. Character creation and selections. Okay. Loading screens. All right, that is nice. I've been saying this for years that should be updated. So that's good. I'm glad to see it. And the map window. All right, sweet. So the map window is the one I'm interested about. The map UI can also now be toggled between full screen and panel mode in the settings. This is awesome. Thank you, devs. I literally just released a video the day before this that I was talking about full screen and maps. And I made a map documentary. If you're curious to see every map in the game from the beginning to right now at the King's Harad, I just put a video out on that. I put it on my tour playlist because I didn't really feel like it was a guide. So I put it on my tour playlist. But one thing I was a little worried about is what if you want to leave the stretched version of the maps and you don't want to use the new thing? Well, they left both versions, so thank you for that. We appreciate that greatly as the community, and I'm sure many people are going to greatly appreciate the updated map thing, which I will definitely use when I'm doing questing. Basically, what it is you'll see it soon. I'll make a guide video on it, or video on it once it comes out. But it is going to be a panel, so instead of the map just filling up the whole screen, it's going to have like it'll be adjusted, so it won't be stretched. So it'll be adjusted to the correct dimensions, and I'm assuming you could shrink it on the screen, so you could like have it in 1/4 of your screen, and then the quest log thing will be on the outside, so you can put it somewhere else. So that's going to be really nice. I'm assuming you're going to be able to shrink and expand both, so you can kind of decide how big you want it on your screen, and then when you hit M, it'll pop up in the corner, kind of more like how your radar works in the top right, than having something that just covers up and you can no longer see anything but the map, right? That's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited about that UI map update. There's been some really awesome plugins that people made in the past with it, but realistically, we should have one probably designed in the game itself within the UI, so just anyone can access it without having to set up a plugin, right? So this is really cool. I'm very excited about that. All right, news and notes. Premium houses will once again return 90% of their homestead coins when sold. Note that premium houses that are released automatically as part of the transfer process will continue to do 100% of the homestead coin cost. This is fine. This is just basically going back to their regular how it worked, okay? Basically, the whole point was if you stopped paying a VIP or whatever and didn't pay your house and you ran out of time, it would kick you out. It would refund you 90% because, there's got to be some incentive to keep up your house, even with the VIP stuff. So, of course, it doesn't matter if you had a lifetime. You have it forever anyway. Foreclosed premium houses will continue to refund 80%, 80%. 90% is if you leave, normally, of their homestead coin cost. So again, this is only, like I just said, to keep people doing stuff with their, playing with and using their houses. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. This is just, that makes sense. They had it at 100% for a long time during the last, 8 months for all the transfer stuff, which I think was very, very kind of them and justified. I think that was good. Some tracer tokens, sealed traceries, enhancement runes, and other packages that were in the mail system when players logged in for update 46 or 46.1 are displaying a gray error when attempting to open them because they are missing their max content level. The issue is now corrected as long as the packages were no longer in the mail system when they first logged in. I'm going to say this for the whole LOTRO community. Guys, don't leave stuff in your mail as storage. It's not how it's supposed to work. I know that some people do it, but you shouldn't do that because you get problems like this. The mail system, as in a data collection thing and how the system works, is not designed to hold all the data. Your vault, your shared storage, your housing storage, your characters' inventories, those are all designed to hold on to that data forever. So I recommend you don't use the mail. Now, of course, this could have been mistakes, right? Someone forgot. They didn't play for 3 months. They forgot there was something in their mail, blah, blah, blah. That's totally reasonable. But I do know that some people in the past were using it for storage. I don't know who. I heard stories, okay? And again, I'm not trying to be mean or trying to go after anyone. I'm just saying, I warn you, I wouldn't do that. The devs have said that too. Please don't do that, right? Resolved an issue where some players could not withdraw account-bound items from their character's shared storage after transferring a legacy world. Items incorrectly marked as bound to another account are now accessible instead. Cool, good. So if people waited and those were in your inventory, you should be able to get them now. So good, just some quality of life fixes there. Festival and events, a legendary server. Ring race spawn announcement should now appear in all regions. So that's for the legendary events, which I would love it someday. I'm just going to say this out here. I know that this event is supposed to be with legendary servers, but it would be cool to have a special event week where ring race pop up on the main servers just to test it out and see how it goes. Just like one time, like, hey, we have these 3 different times bosses are going to pop up and, and that's it. And then if you want to play it more, go to the legendary servers, right? So that could be a good way also to bring people in to want to play the legendary servers. Just saying, it's a little, not only would it be fun for everyone to kind of experience, then people are like, oh, I really like that. Maybe I'll go play on the legendary server, right? A good way might help bring some interest in that to the legendary servers. There's quite a few people that play on legendary servers, by the way, but that you have to be paying for it, and you are not at the max level. I think they're at Moria right now, the time I'm making this video. But moving on, a mission to bring good cheer will now also advance when completing Crown of Hamad. Good. Classes and skills. Okay, so this is where we're gonna get a little wordy. Now you can read this for yourself, so I will link it in the description, obviously. But let's run through this really quickly. I'll tell you some of my favorites that I've seen and some big things here and there. Okay, so I don't want to really turn this in like an hour video, so let me just hop through this quickly. All right, the renewed defenses effects once again last 3 minutes. The DPS specialists now have inherent. Okay, so this is important. So this is some big generic things. Okay, renewed defenses is an effect that takes place after a Oathies, I believe, right? Oathbreakers, yes. Yes, I think it's Oathbreakers. I'm trying to remember. Now, once again, last 3 minutes. I think that's after Oathbreakers. So, I think it was less before. So, a lot of stuff that's being changed right here. Okay, so all of this is something across the board that affects all rate classes. Depending on what your class does, obviously. I'm going to try to break it down and try to explain it for you. But we're going to get some major things put back to how they used to be like 3 or 4 years ago, especially when it comes to threat generation. Threat generation for newer players is basically how enemy monsters interact with your team. Okay, that means like, so you know, no, attack me. You know, the tank wants to scream at them and say bad things about them, and they're like, hey, and they attack the tank. They don't go after the healer, right? Aggro is another term we use, but basically it's when a monster or boss goes for someone. If a DPS does too much damage and the tank doesn't quite tank it correctly and keep his aggro, as we like to say, or threat is the term that's used in the UI, the monster will go, okay, I'm done with the tank. I'm going after that guy shooting arrows at me or shooting lightning bolts at me, right? The DPS. That is how that works for newer players, okay? All DPS, so damage per second specializations, this means anyone who's a damage dealer, okay? Well, no matter what the class is, let's say you're a lore master in red line, you're a damage dealer. You're a hunter in red line, you're a damage dealer. You're a champion in red or yellow, you're both damage dealers, right? So any specialization that is doing damage, right? And like a burglar, right? Burglar has red line, they're a damage dealer. If they're in yellow line, they're a support. They're really not going to do a whole lot of damage, right? They're going to be debuffing. So basically, this is for DPS specializations. So you have to think about every class as in their trees. This is something I've been talking about for a long time. As much as classes are still like, well, what? You're a lore master. Okay, you're a lore master. But really, a lore master has, in my opinion, okay, this isn't the official thing. This is me. This is Zollin, because I like to help teach people about these classes. You really have 3 classes, okay, in a lore master. 3 specializations is the term they use. You have your DPS class version of the lore master, which is red, high damage. You have your buffy and supporty and has pets blue line of the lore master, and then you have the full support healing backup that doesn't do any damage really at all support line, which is yellow. Okay, and they're all different. And so anyway, you all have negative 50% generated threat damage modifier. Increases the overall damage threat difference between DPS and tank specializations. This is wonderful because they're putting back tanks how they used to be. So basically DPS will take 50% less aggro. So if they do 100 damage, the enemy will think they did 50 damage. Okay? That's kind of the idea, right? 50% less, no matter what. For all tank specializations, threat generation damage has been increased by 50%. So this would be Blue Guardian, Tank Captain, which are yellow. Yellow. It's a little confusing. I don't know what that is, but they're yellow. Healing Captains are blue. But Blue Guardian, Yellow Captain, the Blue Brawler, the Blue Bjorning, right? And then we also have, oh my gosh, Wardens in Tank Line. Any of the tank specializations are going to do 50% more damage. So if they do 100 damage, they're going to do 50% more, 150, right? That's kind of the idea, right? That's how the enemy will look at them. So this is to help tanks keep aggro with the new changes, because reducing the copy overhead from 100% threat to 10%. What does that mean? All right, let's explain this real quickly. Right now how DPS works, when someone force taunts, that's called a force taunt, as in any of the classes that have force taunts, only tanks have force taunts. And it basically means the enemy will attack you no matter what during that few seconds period of time. But when you force taunt, it used to be whatever threat was on the boss. So it doesn't matter how much damage everybody did to him around you. All of the damage done to that boss by everybody, all that threat and aggro would be put onto the tank. 100% of it. Boom, the moment they did a force taunt. Which meant if a bunch of people did a ton of damage to the boss and the tank then force taunted, he pretty much had aggro the rest of the fight, right? Unless he died, and it loses all the aggro if you die. He pretty much has threat the rest of the time. So they're going back to how it used to be, which tanks had to actually work to keep threat. That's what they're doing. So it's only 10%. So if they do 1,000 damage, your DPS, and you force taunt, you will have the target on you for 5 seconds with your force taunt, no matter what. But when it's done, what got transferred to you in threat will be only 10% of that 1,000. Only 100 damage, right? Before, it would have been all 1,000 damage transferred to you as the tank. So that means the 90% of damage is still back on all the DPS. But also, don't forget, they reduced the threat generation from them, and they increased how much generation you create. So if you keep using force taunts over and over and over, at a certain point, you're going to have the aggro. At maybe 90% health of the boss, you'll pretty much have aggro. You used maybe 5 or 6 force taunts at this point. You've used your own aggro building abilities and your own damage. you should be good. I don't think it's going to be this whole like horrible thing. Some people are like upset about this. I used to tank all the time at high level with this original system. It was fine. It's not that hard. It's just that beginning part of the fight's a little more challenging for DPS to understand and tanks to not pull aggro. So I think this is fine, this update. I really don't care either way, honestly. The potency of all, but there, now you understand how it works. The potency of all additional threat effects, such as moderately increased threat or greatly increased threat, have been doubled. Woo! That is huge. Okay, so I just made that comment within my last comment that what if you use your generation threat abilities? You have abilities in your kit that will say in a gray text bar, generates moderately increased threat or greatly increases threat, right? These have now have 100% more. So it's I don't think tanks are going to feel a tremendous like burden placed on them or something. I really think it'll be okay. I'm not too worried about it. I will know the moment I'm tanking because I tank so much now that I can feel the differences. I think it'll be okay. Let's Fly no longer has an induction. Now has a 40-meter range. This is and now applies bonus threat for guardians and champions in tanking specialization. This is so cool! Oh my gosh! Okay, Let Fly is a basic generic skill that they gave Guardians and Champions back at the original 18 years ago when this game came out. And it's literally, so Guardians and Champions get a bow, but all they can do is right click and just do regular auto attacks. They have no abilities to trigger, except for this one, which was like, pew, pew. We had one like channel effect ability, and it did nothing but a tiny little bit of damage, and to like pull aggro as long as no one touched the boss, right? No one touched the boss or the ads, then you could use it for that. But really, most of us would just use a taunt. But the fact that they made this have a better range, I think it was 30 before, so they increased it to 40, which is awesome. Should have been, that's so cool for that's really cool. I forgot champions can tank too. So honestly, this is going to be cool for champions too. And guardians. And it now applies the bonus threat for guardians and champion specialization, tank specialization. That is such a cool update. I know you guys are like, it's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal, okay, for us tanks. That's a big deal for guardians and champions. That's really cool. Juret Minesh travel skill no longer takes you to the random place. I heard someone talk about that. Travel skill to Adnaba and Zajana are now more centrally located. Okay. Just a little update for everyone there. With the transfer skills, I believe that's like wardens and hunters have those abilities. Bjorning. Let's quickly look at the Bjorning. All right, mending. Let's get through this really quick here. Bee Swarm no longer forces your target to move away from you. Okay, interesting. The mounted skill. Okay, that's if you're doing war steeds, I believe. Mend will no longer unique sound for every ally target. Okay. Guess that was just annoying, maybe. Vicious Claws will no longer make runs to skill Mark Bjorn. Well, I'm trying to see if any of these are... I want to try to learn to tank on the Bjorning later. But we also have a few other people who are now tanking on the Bjorning and they're doing a great job. I know our officer Daggend is. He's doing a great job. Maul now consumes 5 wrath per second, 10 wrath per second while specialized in the high. Okay. That's the tank version. Okay. Roar Maul now has a 6-second cooldown. There's a buff. Okay. So you have a little bit of a faster cooldown. Longer can sustain its wrath. Its cooldown is reduced by seconds. Okay. That seems like a buff. The seconds, but now lasts as long as you can sustain the wrath. Okay. I don't know what I don't play this class enough to know if that's a good or bad thing for them, but you know, it's probably, we'll see. I tend to be in the boat of you need to have little balances, so little nerfs here is fine, but I always tend to say instead of nerfing things to balance to other classes, you should always buff other classes to be closer to what those classes, the other ones, are good at. And be closer to them. They have the uniqueness, and you don't want to have power creep happen, but at the same time, you really don't want to do massive nerfs all the time. It just makes people upset. You know, someone spent hours making a class, and then they feel like it's not in the meta because of a huge change. So just keep bringing it up. A little side note for that, I think arcanes need some big damage buffs since they removed their ability to do the double tap ability cast. It has definitely reduced their damage tremendously in a bad and negative way. So we'll see. I think the devs will, I'm sure they'll figure that out. But I think the arcane needs to get some buffs, whether it be their dots buffed or something in Fireline, so they can really, be super, be at least close to like what a minstrel or a red lore master or a red mini can do in damage on a target. I feel like personally that I don't want any nerfs to happen to the mini or the lore master, but I think the red arcane should be really good at doing bleeds and single target damage on a boss. And I really think their AoE bleeds should be good. But I think that's what they should be specialized in. I feel like that's how Redline has always felt. Anyway, I'm getting off track here, but let's keep going. A couple other buffs. We're going to go ahead and not worry anymore about the Bjorning here. There's a few more things. The Maul now affects enemies up to 10 meters away from you. It has a base count of 10, up from 5. That is a huge buff. So they are buffing their tanking ability. The Hide, by the way, is their tank stance. I'm 90% sure. I don't remember the name right now. Maul no longer taunts enemies, but does generate increased threat each time it deals damage. Oh, interesting. Okay, so they're increasing the AoE. It's kind of a bummer that's not a force taunt anymore, but it increases threat. That makes sense to help them build. It kind of makes sense, though. This might be a buff with how the rework of the system works, because if you think about it, a force taunt isn't as impactful now because it only does 10%. It doesn't do 100%. So you may want the damage, because the damage is being increased for tank's threat generation, and have increased threat, which has also been buffed by 100%. So this actually is a buff, if you think about it, with the new system. Yeah, it is. I don't know the exact numbers, but I have a feeling that's a buff. Brawlers. Their strike cooldown has reduced by 10 seconds. Okay. Mighty Upheaval can no longer knock down foes by default. I'm a little sad about this. I feel like that was really cool. Mighty Upheaval cooldown reduced, so it's faster. You can do more often, which is one of their threat building abilities, so they do need to have that up more often. Maybe they just felt like it always knocking down no matter what was a little powerful. The Mighty Upheaval knockdown damage trace rate has been split, and there's now a trace rate for knocking down chance, so you can get it up to 80%, so that's pretty good still. That's pretty good. That means you could do that in the Moors too. But that's pretty good. And a second trace rate for damage. And this is now with the new tanking updates, damage trace rate might be good, because your damage is going to be a 50% more effective. And if it is a one that builds aggro, like Mighty Upheaval, that's 100% effective on top of that. So is that 150? That's not how that percents works, Zollin, but you get my point. Strike to the Sky can no longer knock enemies upwards. What? Really? Can no longer knock enemies upwards? Is that just in blue line or for everything? I don't like that very much. That was like my favorite thing when I was on the Brawler. That feels kind of mean to the Brawlers. Strike cooldown has reduced by a little bit. So Strike to the Skies is a threat builder, and so is Upheaval. So these are supposed to be to make tank brawlers work better with that. Okay, so what they should have done here, all right, and I know, sounds a little presumptuous of me to say should have done, but I am going to say it. They should have made Strike to the Sky no longer knock up enemies when you're in blue line, and it should still do it in red line. Because if you're in DPS, it should knock people up. That's cool. It's like really, really cool animation. I don't know why they would do that. All right, so note to the devs, guys. You should add that back into the red line or something. The knock up, because that's like really fun, really cool, and it looks so cool. It's so cinematic for the Brawler. It's kind of weird to remove that. All right. Anyway, I'm getting stuck on that, but you get my point. I get to say my opinion sometimes here. You guys are like, you always say it's all. I know. Burglars. The mounted skill Trick Impue character no longer changes your target's aggression. Okay. Just a little update there. Let's see. Captains. Routing Cry now has a 12-meter radius when specialized in Leader of Men, so they buffed it a tiny bit to be the same as the Guardians, being reduced from 21 meters to 12 because of their thing. So, Galliot displayed effects now tiered down upon expiration. Okay, cool. Hammer Stroke damage increased slightly. That's to help hold aggro. Galliot displayed Routing Cry increased slightly when specialized in Leader of Men. Their damage is increased. That's to help them hold aggro. Cool. When specialized in Leaders of Men, Battle Shout will now hit multiple targets around them. Sweet. That's cool. So Leaders of Men is the DPS, right? No, wait, no. No, Leaders of Men is the tank one. Why am I saying that? Sweet. Helps them hold aggro. All right, Champions. Champions challenge cooldown reduced by 10 seconds when specialized in the Martial Champion, so it's a lot faster when it's when they're tanking. I would really like to see. I want to see some tank champs. I know it can be done, but I feel like it'd be really fun. Champions challenge. I may level up my champion just to learn how to tank. I like to tank, guys, so I want to like know how to tank on every class. Except I might not do wardens, because as much as I love wardens, and I know we have wardens in our mains, that's a lot, that class. I think it's the hardest class in the game, personally. Champions challenge debuff removed. I'll probably get there someday and play it. The debuff used to be very influential in certain fights. I think what they were worried about, I was talking to our officer Veals. He actually said he didn't really care about this, that they removed it. I understand why he says that. I think that they were trying really hard to make that not so meta. The whole goal in this update is to try to make things not so meta for the whole group. They want it to be really, you can bring... They want you to bring one of every class. They clearly want that. And they want you to bring specializations of that. You want a tank, you want DPS, you want a healer, you want supports. You need all that. But I think they're trying to get away from the fact that, like, oh, you have to bring this class. You have to bring this class, right? We have to have a champion for that. Now, do I want champions in the fight? Absolutely. The champions are awesome. But the point is, though, it's so revolved around that certain fights. Same thing when we get to the Minstrel with the Call to Greatness, which, again, I don't really totally like that update, but I kind of understand their logic behind it. But we'll get there when we get there. Horn of Gondor damage increased by 10%. That's to help hold aggro. Trading into the Martial Champion now reduces the true hero cooldown by 80 seconds. Nice. It's one of their survival things, if I remember correctly. But that's really good. True Heroics, the Martial Champion no longer restores allies' power. That's kind of depressing, but, you know, I guess not the end of the world. Horn of the Champions now has a 12-meter range. Oh, look, there's that 12 meters again. They're definitely trying to make it where all tanking classes have about 12 meters. They're trying to universally set that up. Horn of the Champions no longer debuffs enemies. Okay, weird. Horn of the Champions cooldown is reduced by 12 seconds, 8 seconds when ranked to rank 2, and now costs 2 fervor. So I guess that's less. I think it was 3 before. Clobber, that's just off the top of my head. It's like my least played class, besides Warden. Clobber still consumes fervor, but now be used with fervor. I do have a level like 80 though that I play sometimes. Increase second wind restoration potential from fervor. Adamant base value from 5 to 20%. Whoa, with a max of 40% for okay, all right. Merciful strike, occasionally power. All right, so there's some little changes and buffs back and forth there. A lot of those are buffs for tanking, it seems like. Guardian. Okay, so Guardian. Oh, Guardian. Remember I said I didn't want to turn this video in an hour? Pfft, hilarious, Solid. You jinxed yourself. So anyway, we're going to talk about this because this is important. But people can leave the video if they don't want. I try to, at the beginning of the video, guys, that's why I always tell you guys at the beginning of video, like what I'm going to kind of cover in the video. I don't like to make people feel like they have to stay for a video. I want it to be fun. You know, you hear all these things online. Oh, this is how you should do stuff to make sure that people stay and watch your video as long as possible. I want you guys to have fun. I don't really care. I'm just going to make the video how I want to make it. You know what I mean? You know, if you guys want to come watch the whole video, I appreciate it. If you don't have the time to watch the whole video, I understand. If you want to throw a like on there and subscribe, thanks so much. I appreciate it. It's free. Helps me out a lot. But the Guardians, I'm very excited right now. Very excited about this update, so I will talk about it quite a little bit. I am really excited about the Red Guardian. I will be making a guide video updated on the Red Guardian, but we have that, and we're going to also have some changes for the blue line because of the tanking rework. So, The Keen Blade now increases skill damage by 10%. So a flat 10% damage increase across the board for Redline Guardian DPS. I have been asking for DPS Guardian buffs for like 5 years. I don't even know, maybe longer. Longer than I had been being a content creator, making stuff on this channel. I'm really excited about this. Now, I've heard from a few people that it's still not super high damage when they're testing on Bullroarer. But I'm going to test it too and find out. It may need a couple more little bumps here and there in damage output. They really need to make Guardians... Clearly, they've made Champions a lot closer to being able to tank with some of those updates they did. They need to make Guardians at the point where we can do decent damage. So if you have a full decked out champion, let's say Redline, because I feel like Redline is single target like the Guardian, and you have a full decked out Guardian for DPS in Redline, I really think the Guardian should probably be like, when you do the full DPS rotations, it should be like no less than 20% behind the red champ, and that might even be too much. The way they're trying to specialize every type of role instead of every class tells me that that's their goal in the future. What I just said, that's what they want. And again, red champions and yellow champions feel very different how they play than the red guardian, and they're going to feel even more different now with these updates. The red guardian, they're basically putting the red guardian how they used to be and then giving them damage buffs and other things that are quality of life. So let's talk about it, because I'm curious. I'm really excited about this. Breach and Whirling Breach have been removed. Don't freak out when you read that. Retaliation and Whirling Retaliation are once again available to be specialized. Okay, so Breach and Whirling Breach used to be Retaliation and Whirling Retaliation. That's what it used to be like 4 or 5 years ago. They're just putting it back to how it used to be. So basically, when you get a parry response, you'll be able to use Retaliation or Whirling Retaliation. Cool. That's how it used to be. And you used to open that with Force Open, usually. All right, to do that combo. Now, there's a couple things they're getting rid of that I'm so happy, because they're really annoying, but let's go ahead and keep talking about it. Relentless Fury has been renamed Righteous Fury. Interesting. We'll see what they're going to do with that. I think it's going to stay the same. They just decided to change it because I think they're getting rid of that naming. I think Righteous Fury sounds way cooler than Relentless Fury. I can tell you that right now for the Guardian. Guardians have a little bit of like a paladin feel to them. They always have to me. They just have that feeling of protecting the weak, you know. They have like Bastion of Light, you know. It has that feeling a little bit, and it should. I think it should. I like that. It's funny because what do I play in D&D? A paladin, of course. War Chant's default radius has been increased from 10 meters to 12 meters. So it's like, yay, that looks like a buff. Well, it used to always be 21 meters because it was almost doubled by the demoralizing anthem no longer changes the radius of War Chant. It used to make it 22, which is, it's a nerf. But I understand because like we talked about, we saw it with the other classes, they're trying to make all radiuses 12. So the good news is I hopefully will not have to put points into this. As much. We'll see what it gives me later with the update. Maybe I will. But it's still getting a buff from the default. It'll be 12 meters. So that's good. Shield Swipe is now properly modified by area of effect trait bonuses. I guess it wasn't. It was glitching. They added that recently. That was a buff they added just about a few weeks ago. Relentless Fury has been renamed to Righteous Fury. Didn't they? Wait a second. Wait, guys. We have a copy paste issue here. It's the same thing. Righteous, that's funny. This shouldn't be here. I think that was a mistake. That's all right. It happens to the best of us. Righteous Fury base cooldown reduced by 100 seconds. So if it does the same thing, which I guess it does because it didn't say they updated the Righteous Fury, Relentless Fury, that's such a big buff. Because Relentless Fury was very strong buff. It's 20% increased crit damage and crit magnitude? I forget. But it's really, really strong. So that's huge. To have 100 seconds off, that's really huge. Huge buff for Redline Guardian. Thank you, devs. We've been needing... Red Guardians have been neglected pretty much as long as Red Hunters were neglected. That's a joke for all my Hunter mains out there. Red Hunters are awesome now, by the way. And we're going to talk about they did some stuff to make sure they stayed good. Bleeds associated with Brutal Assault and Overwhelm have been renamed to more closely match their skill names. Okay. Hemorrhaging Wound is now Brutal Wound, and Terrible Wound is now Overwhelming Wound. I like that. It's simple. It's to the point. It just fixes it makes it easier for people to remember. Cool. Brutal Assault cooldown has been reduced by 8 seconds, a buff to damage. Brutal Assault now unlocks Thrust, Overwhelm, and Parry skill responses. Sweet. So you're going to have, I assume, unless they say otherwise, Force Open and Brutal Assault will unlock your abilities. And interesting, it'll unlock Thrust, Overwhelm, and your Parry response skill. So you won't have to do the chain. You can use that as part of the chain. Ooh, we're going to have a different way to do the chain? Ooh, I'm so excited, you guys. I can't even tell you. Oh, Brutal Assault now applies a Brutal Wound if a deep wound is present. Oh, so they moved a bigger bleed to there. Because Thrust, they got rid of, I believe, the Thrust bleed, which was annoying to have to do and then Overwhelm. So that might be easier to do in the rotation to flip it around. Oh, I see why they did that. I'm thinking about the rotation in my mind right now, how it's like muscle memory when I play, so... Brutal Assault's base damage has been increased, so a buff to its damage. The trait Hemorrhage has been changed to add 4% to Brutal Wound bleed damage and increase the critical magnitude of Brutal Assault by 2.5 per tier. Ooh, another huge damage buff. Tireless Blows has been renamed Faultless Assault. Faultless Assault increases the damage dealt by Brutal Assault by 5% per tier. Another huge damage buff. Brutal Assault, they're really laying into that skill. It's going to be awesome. Into the Fray has been renamed Sting of Justice. Yeah. Whoever's doing these updates, you guys know us Guardians. We just want to be Paladins. Sting of Justice, awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Sting of Justice increases the damage of all bleeds by 3% for tiers 1 through 5 and adds an additional 5% in tier 6 for a total of 20%. So they're really laying into some of the bleed damage. That's cool. Maybe the Red Guard will actually want to use the bleed damage LI. Cool. Sting of Justice no longer confers a 100% chance to critical strike on a virtuous charge. That I'm a little bit bummed about, but I understand. I love the 100% chance, but they're going to put it into something else. So no one freak out yet. Overwhelm now applies an overwhelming bleed if a deep wound is present. Okay, cool. Brutal Charge, it's another one of the stacking bleed systems. Brutal Charge has been renamed to Virtuous Charge. Okay. Virtuous Justice. Yeah, I love it. This is a huge update, okay? Virtuous Charge no longer grants 100% crit on your next basic man. It feels like a nerf, but they're adding it somewhere else, so hang on. It's a little bit bummer, but yeah. Virtuous Charge now guarantees that the first successful melee attack, skill strike, after activation will knock the targets down. Yes, they kept that! Ooh, I'm so happy about that. I was really worried they were going to get rid of that knockdown. So why did they get rid of the knockup for the Brawler? Give it back to the Brawler. Give it back. Give it back. Sorry. I'm just being silly. The devs can laugh at me if you guys see this. Virtuous Charge, I really do think that their knockup, they should still have that with Uppercut. Virtuous, I appreciate it that you guys kept the knockdown on the targets for the charge. I love that so much. It's my favorite thing about the Guardian. Virtuous Charge now dispels the speed boost and knockdown bonus on a successful damage skill. The slow immunity remains. Okay, so this is interesting. So you're going to have to choose, if you're in PvP or if you're in PvE, between doing the knockdown and losing your run speed buff in Redline, or leaving it on, don't touch anyone, just keep running, and have the immunity to slows. I think that's fair. It's a bummer, but I think that's fair. You won't be able to knock people down and then do little spins around them as you hit them. Okay, protection by the sword. So that's the updates with the charge. This Protection by the Sword is the buff you normally give to everybody, and give everyone a 3% damage buff. So Protection by the Sword requires you to now target a player other than yourself. So it's going to be a buff on one person. Protection by the Sword, which is cool because that's how I believe the used to work. They're kind of going back to how one of them used to work. Bestows a 5% bonus to parry and partial parries. So that's a 10 for 5 and 5% on the target. This is going to be amazing. Amazing to have in a raid now. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, as a Guardian tank, if I have a red Guardian giving me an extra 5% parry and parry response on top of my regular stats, that's going to stack on top. That's a lot. I already have like a 43%, 45%-ish. When I've got my stacks a little higher, 45-ish% chance to not be hit with all my parry, block, and evade. So if I have this on top, now I've got over 50% chance to not be hit all the time. That's not counting with my Warrior's Heart. That's not counting with my Guardian's Pledge. That's going to be huge. That's going to really help out captains, because captains don't get nearly as much block, parry, and response, but they have more HP, right? But they can get close. That they're going to have tons more with that. A red Guardian in a raid, if their damage is decent, now it might end up being kind of like, I dare say meta? I don't think so. Maybe? I don't want to say I don't think so, because I don't know. I got to test it first. They may have to bump their damage a little more. I really need to test on the dummy and see the differences compared to, like, a champion, which is probably one of the closest things to compare it to. But you're not going to be able to hit champion level damage. Champions are DPS. They need to be the damage kings of melee. Them and burglars. They have to be, though. But if Guardian can get close to that, so you can bring them in and justifiably bring them into a raid with full gear, that would be good. I really think Guardian should be able to... You should really be able to bring in a raid, have a tank guard and DPS guard, and there shouldn't be any issue or like, oh, I wish we could have rather brought this, right? We don't want to have that in our minds. We want to be able to bring what classes we have and who's playing what class, and that it works. And that's what the devs are trying to do here, so I appreciate that. When the target of the Protection by the Sword within 20 meter parries or partial parries, the Guardian unlocks a parry response. That's how it's always worked back in the day. Cool. Hammer Down's cooldown is reduced to a base of 30 seconds instead of 45. That's a huge buff. That's awesome. The trait Rupture no longer causes Hammer Down to apply an incoming damage bonus to bleeding targets, and instead applies a bleed that simultaneously scales based on the number of bleeds it consumes on your target. So they've buffed its damage and what it does, and Ruptured Artery now lasts for 8 seconds. So I'm a little bummed about this. So the reason why they're doing this, okay, I like the idea that the Guardian could give an 8% damage increase on the target. It really helped when you like everyone do Oathies, do all these buffs. I loved it when the Red Guardian could also trigger something on top of there. Like, I love that the Blue Guardian, please don't ever change it, devs. The Blue Guardian has breaks, and it works on the whole raid. I love that. I hope they never change that. I'd be very disappointed if they changed that. It's really cool. And I love that the Blue Guardian can open a Fellowship Maneuver. It's really cool. It makes sense. They're like a main tank. You need that, right? Have them or a Burglar or a Lore Master open a Fellowship Maneuver, or even a Yellow Hunter, right? But one thing I really want to see on the Red Guard, so this is notes to the devs, is I really want to see the option to the King to have a chance to open Fellowship Maneuvers again, a chance like it used to. I really think that was really neat. It doesn't have to be guaranteed, just a chance. And I also really liked... I liked the percent damage for the Rupture. I liked it when you used it, that it would buff the target. But the reason I think they're removing that, and I understand why, is because they're trying to make it where specializations for people doing damage buffs on targets are support classes or like healers or tanks. They don't want DPS to be doing big damage buffs on the target. I think that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to like coordinate things. Now, interestingly enough, I don't see the Protection by the Sword removal of the 3% damage aura in this. Did they forget to put it in here? Because I read on the other one that they were going to remove that. I have a feeling they are going to remove that, but there was a 3% damage aura on Protection by the Sword for the whole raid. I felt like you should just keep it in there Because why not? The whole thing is you're trying to buff the Guardian's damage, so they can also give everyone a 3% damage buff. That's all the more reason to have them in the raid, right? It's not a lot, but it's like a, it's like a scroll, right? Looks like it doesn't even say that they're removing it here. Did I miss it? Now, I also thought Protection by the Sword was going to give a crit scaling thing where whenever something happens, whenever they did a block parry response, that it would cause a crit effect to happen. And that's where the 100% crit was going to go into that. Did I miss it? Huh. I definitely read that in the previous patch notes for the things they were having. Maybe they forgot to put that in these patch notes, or maybe they're going to do that later. I thought that every time you were going to get a parry response, that the Guardian would also get a chance to get a special crit, extra, like a chance to crit, like a 100% chance to crit. Maybe that's just going to be in parry response. They didn't say that here, though. Huh. Maybe they're leaving the 3% aura and they're not going to do the crit thing. I was really kind of looking forward to the crit thing, if that was a thing they were going to do. Unless I just totally missed something here. Well, we'll make a guide video on that when we get there. All right, hunters. Note, saved trait figures have been reset due to the changes of the hunter. All hunter skill damage has been increased. For most skills, damage has been increased by 50%. Some key bowman skills at 20%. This is because they're moving away volley from the red line. So they're just going to buff the damage to kind of make up for it. Epic. That's what they should have done. I'm glad they did it. Introduction times of the barbed arrow and swift bow have been reduced. Sweet. So you can use them faster. Volleys now are granted a bonus trait when specialized in the huntsman. Volley now only buff focus, spend, or damage. Interesting. This is more of design for PvP anyway, and I know that Riku, one of our resident main hunters in our group, is saying he hated having the volley effect when they reworked the hunter anyway in Redline. So, cool. They're giving Redline more damage, or actually all hunter skills, just all have been increased, and they're kind of making volley a specialized thing, probably for PvP. It's probably the goal, or just solo leveling. Yes, I did an anime reference. The original volley trait is now inaccessible to Bowmaster and Trapper foes. So there you go. There's the original volleys type. Huntsman bleed removal bonus damage effect potency increased. Okay, a buff to their bleed damage. The trait plant your feet and critical precision have swap places, making critical precision a Bowmaster exclusive trait. Okay, something that goes just in Redline. Swift versus base proc chance has been increased by 10%. Deadly precision has been removed to a positions shallower in the Bowmaster trait tree and is now rank 2. Okay, cool. The strength trait has been moved into the Bowmaster's passive capstone trait position. Interesting. Okay. An issue with Storm of Arrows trait tooltip has been fixed. You know, they say it like this. I heard the reason was that something was triggering a reset over and over, and it was kind of cool. And I don't think it was intentional. That's why they say fix. An issue with the Huntsman Blade, a trait tool, has been fixed. I'm not sure if that is that or if I'm making an assumption, or that's just some random thing they fixed. The Umbari armor of the jungle goes 6-piece bonus set. Once again, adds the stun, interruption, explosion arrow. Okay, Lore Masters. The mounted skill sign of power has been something fixed and moved to red something. Fixed a bug where staff and effects showing off combat while using a movement. Okay, all right. Minstrels. This is a big one. We got to talk about this real fast. Call the Greatness longer resets allies' capstone skills. I am really... personally, as I know it's because we're used to it and we like it, I do not like this update. But... because I am not a minstrel main, I would have to let minstrel main say it. Let me know in the comments. But I think one of the goals is they want it to be less of a, you have to work around this skill, right? Because it's like you really couldn't run a raid and not have a minstrel in the group. It was kind of like you couldn't do that. It's such, Call to Greatness is so powerful and such an amazing thing. And again, Call to Greatness will hurt me as a guardian more than most because it removed my ability, my capstone. I reset my thing that applied all my bleeds, my big roar, forget what it's called right now. And it also removes my instant reset for my, gosh, I cannot think of the ability right now. It's my 100% block chance ability. It's 3-minute cooldown. But yeah, I just totally drew a blank on the names. I apologize. But anyway, bottom line is, it's kind of a bummer, right? It also reset like Oathies. It reset big Minstrel heals, big Runekeeper, our big Runekeeper shield. It didn't really do anything for red Runekeepers at all. And other things. It reset a lot of very long cooldowns where you could kind of chain and combo them. And I guess the idea is they really don't want it to be a crutch for everyone to use. I think that's the gist I got after I talked to people in the Discord. My biggest and kindest critique was that they really need to do a better job of explaining why they're doing a change. Like even here, like they really should have a link, okay? And it should say, here's a link to our discussions and why we're removing Call to Greatness, or if they want to make it sound negative, why we are changing Call to Greatness and why we think this is a good change. You know, I can click it and you go read the discussions and they can explain there with more details. If they don't want to put it on the patch notes, right? Or where you speak about it, because I mean, I finally found where they did talks on things, but a lot of things weren't like in the main official Discord, which I know they're trying to do. I heard people say, I think even Cordova mentioned in one of his public talks that they want to try to make sure all the discussions and talks and posts are also happening in the official Discord, because they know so many people look there now, and the forums, obviously. So good, that's awesome, thumbs up. But that's really, really important, I think, because changes like this could really just like crush some people. Right, it can be really like, I worked so hard to get to this level, and I just got there, and now you can remove one of my best things. Minstrels are still going to be a staple character in raids. Absolutely 100%. That's not going to change. Red Minstrels are amazing. Blue Healer Minstrels are they are the best. Like, they can give tons of really great buffs. They have awesome, like, instant big heals that other classes just can't do. Arcades heal kind of like over time and stuff, but you really need to have a Minstrel Arcade combo is amazing. But now we're at the point where you could have a Minstrel and a Captain Healer, maybe, or a Runekeeper and a Minstrel. Where before, it was really kind of troll if you didn't have a red Minstrel to not bring a blue Minstrel to have Call to Greatness, right, in a raid. So I think that's their goal. I think that's what they're doing. So I'm being really very kind and open-minded on this one, because I'm like, I think that's why they're doing that. I think they're worried that Call to Greatness is being kind of a crutch to... like if you don't bring it, you're trolling, right? That's like the term I would say, right? If you don't bring Call to Greatness in a group, you're being silly because it's just too amazing to leave out. And that's why it's kind of rough to lose, right? Because you're like, oh, we love it. But at the same time, I think that's what they're thinking. But they did give some buffs in its place. So Call to Greatness now has a 120-second less cooldown, which is amazing. Some set bonuses reduce that from 60 and 30. They say that in parentheses, maybe their raid gear. We'll see. Call to Greatness now causes all your ballots, so this is for your Minstrel, to become AoE skills that each grant 3 of their respective ballot buffs, as well as now 2 effects, depending on your specialization. Watcher of the Resolve, which is, I believe, the healer, blue line, right, immediately restores 50% of maximum morale and a plus 25% maximum morale and a 0.5 incoming damage reduction and 15 seconds to Anthem cooldown for 15 seconds. So huge buffs. Is that just for yourself or is that for the whole raid? Ballots become AoE skills that grant 3 respectable buffs, as well as 1 of 2 effects. Call Greatness all your ballots to now causes all of your ballots to be AoE skills that each grant 3 of their respectable buffs, as well as 1 of 2 effects depending on your specialization. So is this on? Okay, so I'm a little bit confused with the wording here. A little bit. I thought that I read in the previous patch notes that it was just on yourself. But does Water of Resolve immediately restore on the selected target? So it could be yourself or somebody else? And you restore 50% of maximum. It says immediately restore 50% of maximum morale. Does that mean yourself of yourself? I'm a little bit confused on this wording. Immediately restore 50% of maximum morale on your target you're clicked on, and give them a 25% morale boost and a 50% damage reduction incoming, and then 50% anthem cooldown for 15 seconds. This is clearly for yourself. So this makes me feel like it's all for yourself. But I mean, if it's for a selected target, it could give these 3 benefits to your selected target, and then also give anthem cooldown to yourself. Huh. So this would be kind of insane if this was for a selected target. You could use this on your tank or something. If you could use it on yourself, it's still really strong, but not as insane, because like usually the healers should not be being hit, right? But if you can immediately restore 50% of health of an ally and give them a 25% morale boost and 50% incoming damage reduction for 15 seconds, that seems kind of busted, actually. This is probably just for themselves. Yeah, man, that would be crazy for the tanks. That would be actually crazy. And would actually make Call to Greatness, this whole change, maybe even okay. Like, as in, that would be insane. You could just totally save a DPS that was about to die. Or you could totally keep your tank up if there's some huge damage output that comes on the tank. That could be really cool if that's for a selected target. I mean, that could be amazing. That would be really awesome. That would definitely, for me as a Guardian tank, I wouldn't really care that I can't use my 50%, my 100% chance to block again within 3 minutes if I got these kind of buffs for 15 seconds. That's a huge buff. I guess we'll see. Warrior Scald, 30%. So this is for themselves, obviously. I have a feeling this is just for themselves, but we're going to find out. I kind of wish they would have said for yourself, just so we wouldn't be confused. I wouldn't be confused on that. I'm pretty sure what I read before in the other patch notes that that's the case. Warrior Scald, 30% chance that it's not for a target, it's just for yourself. 30% chance quotas to cash out ballad buffs, 25% outgoing damage, and 15%. That's cool. So just super buff to your damage as a red mini, which is crazy. So red mini single target damage is going to be even more. They're already like the best in the game. I think they can even beat a Lore Master, which are like insane. So they're going to have even more now. Okay, craziness. Bolster Courage healing increased by 15%. Just a flat out healing increase in general. Bolster Courage power cost increased slightly. Okay. Ray Spirit's healing has been increased 30%. That's huge. Runekeepers got a 5% nerf on the healing on their writ. Only on their writ. It's one of their like overtime heals, which you do use a lot, but I don't think that's the end of the world. I think that was more of a balancing thing. They're trying to make it where minstrels are a little bit more on the same level as the Runekeepers, and I don't know why they just nerf just buff other people to get to that point. But 5% is nothing. It's not really going to be felt by the arcanes that much for one skill. It'll probably take off about 5% healing or something like that in the long run if you heal for like 2 minutes straight. All right, combat monsters. So anyway, so we'll see. This would be absolutely tremendously amazing if it was for your target selected. Be amazing. That would definitely make healing minstrels just be like, again, glorious and have an array. But if it's just for themselves, still really, really good. It means that your minstrel healer will be much, much harder to kill, which would kind of fit their class, honestly. It would basically be like, yeah, don't worry about the minstrel. He's getting hit by some ads. He's going to use his thing that makes him basically invulnerable for the next 15 seconds. Not invulnerable, but you get my point. That's crazy. An instant heal, they're getting hit, 25% more morale, and take 50% less damage for 15 seconds. It's really strong. It's not insane like forever, but it's really strong. I really hope that that's something they can use, whether on themselves or on somebody else. Though that would make this update way less of a cringe and more of a, okay, I can see how that can be extremely good still. Still, I can still say this is extremely good even if it's just for themselves, but I really think that'd be awesome if it was someone they could target. I probably did this whole talk, and then I could just go back and read the notes from last week, and it probably would say it was single target on themselves only, but that's okay. Quests, they've done some updates. Do they have the steps in the mire here? I'm looking. Do you see it? No, I don't see it. That one needs to be repaired in the hunter's camp. I don't see it. Margala. Yeah, they did a bunch of questing. Tasks and deeds and reputation. Don't see anything about it. Missions and delvings, adjusted bestowal text, some basic updates. So they fixed some instances and skirmishes. Voiceover has been added to Dunshuma. I'll do voiceovers. The Forge Day, okay, cool. Fixed items, crafting, hobbies, all right. Fixed an issue where someone tailor recipes were incorrectly single use. Thank you. You can now, after this update, your things should no longer be single use. They don't waste them right now. We were all waiting for that. Fishing should now work in several areas, previously not, particularly in Rohan and Gondor. Umbar Woodworker, rest 15 recipes are instruments for bard weapons, now have 5% chance to critical success. There was a glitch, okay. Housing decorations, all purpose. I really think a good housing decoration, guys, would be a dummy to put gear on. So, like, you can put it in one spot, and then you click on it, and you can put all the armor pieces and, like, a cloak on it. That would be really a cool housing thing. I really think the devs should make that. I'm going to be pushing that here on this channel for a while. So, devs, we'd really love it. So, like, whether it be something you have to, I think probably make them purchasable in the LOTRO store, right, to make some money. But I think people would pay LOTRO points for that. That's really cool, you know? I don't know what would be reasonable price for it. Well, that's Potion Man. No. But that would be really cool. I really want to see that. Potions acquired. Outpost now grant last night 90 minutes. Oh, sweet. Instead of 30 minutes. That's an update. That's nice. Buff. Monster play. Morale. Potions purchased. Now increased power. Morale by 5%. Ooh. Sweet. That's like the buff. That's awesome. I wonder if you can use these then outside the moors, or if they're only going to be usable on the moors. That'd be a really cool way to get stuff for go play in the moors and have stuff for raiding for PvE. I think I should already know that. I played both. I should know that already. I'll check later. I don't remember off the top of my head. Bunch of Entomor's root positions now correctly cleansed, slows, and used on blue. Landscape and adventure areas. I'm just double checking if there's any info here that I missed. They did a lot. Sound and art and avatars. Wow. A lot of updates. Holy moly. They did so much in this. Holy moly. We're not going to talk about all this. UI miscellaneous. UI scalings are underway. This is a large effort that will happen in stages over the course of many releases. Plugin support for the changes will follow. Okay, for the plugins. Updated the kinship calendar flow to allow the event organizer to see the event RSAP list. Cool. They need to make it where you can plan farther out, though, with that calendar. I'm sure they'll get there. Fixed a bug in the kinship calendar when status was being cut off. Wow. Known issues? Where footsteps in the mire? Footsteps in the mire? No footsteps in the mire? Just tease it up. I'm sure they'll get it sooner or later. I'm sure they know about it. Probably just didn't get put into this. All right, guys. Anyway, have a great day in Middle-earth. I'll see you in the next ones. Very excited. Some new instances, some UI skill updates are going to be rolled out over the next few patches, some big updates to stuff. There are some good things. There are a few things that I'm not sure on, a little confused on the minstrel thing, if it's single target or just for themselves, or they could choose someone else or just for themselves with the healing buff, Call to Greatness. I do think that they said nothing about arcanes. I think arcanes need some buffs with Redline. I know because I've been talking to a few of my arcanes in my group. Definitely need some. I really think when they do debuffs or buffs that they should have links to in this especially because it's like the main thing people look at to like where we discussed it. And probably the main Discord I would make sense to have it there. So people can kind of know why and have like a little info on like why we plan to change this. Whether it be a nerf or a buff, like why do we feel like we need to change this, right? Or like what our long-term goal is, because we're trying to balance all the classes out to do these certain things, each of them, like we saw with the taunts, right? We know, and they're definitely going for 12 meters for tanks. I'm very excited about the Red Guardian updates. I think those are going to be really cool. I'm a little confused on what happened to the 3% AoE, so it's just gone, I think. Damage from the friction by the sword, and are we still going to get the response where we get a chance, like a guaranteed crit chance from the parry response from whoever you have the sword on? Because I know that was a thing in the previous patch, and it just wasn't even said here. So did it get removed? Did they forget to put it in? I'm not sure. That's okay if they did, but I kind of hope that's going to be a thing still, because removing the 100% chance to crit with the charge is kind of a bummer. So, but if they do it where like occasionally when you get a special parry response, you can do a 100% chance to crit when you get that parry response, that would be really cool. And I think the Red Guards can need all the buffs they can get. They might need more. Who knows? So I love it that they balanced the Hunter and gave them buffs, even though they changed the volley system. It looks like they really actually balanced all the different tanks to be able to tank better with the new style of aggro, or I should say the old style of aggro, how it used to be. And I think the uppercut punch, I think they should bring that back as even just a chance for the brawlers, because that was cool. And bring it back just in Redline. If they really don't want it for the tank brawlers, bring it back in Redline so they can have the knockup. I felt like that was such a cool animation, so it's kind of weird to take that away. So there we go. Those are my thoughts. Again, I'm trying to be a voice, not just for here on my channel, but for all of my people that make comments in my kinship or all here on the channel, for everyone, and also for the devs. I like to try to think in my mind about like, what are they thinking when they do this change, right? That's what my goal is. But that's why I think it'd be really important they have a link to their discussions on why they're doing it. I think it really help people understand more. And again, I'm happy to help try to explain stuff too, like I did in this whole video. I love doing that. I will keep doing that. But I think it's important the devs have something, because I can't answer all the questions, obviously. I don't know what's going through their heads. I'm just making assumptions out of educated guesses, right? So anyway, with that, my friends, have a great day in Middle-earth. Most of this update, very excited about 95% of it. I think it'll be really fun. Thanks to my patrons, Martin, Elraandor, and Reb, and to all of my patrons for their support. I do this channel full time, so it means a lot. I hope this helped you guys out. Have a great and wonderful day in Middle-earth. Baruch Khazad, Kuzad menu. And I'll see you on the next ones. Stay happy, my friends. I'll see you all very soon. Cheers! And keep it up, devs. We're excited. I'm really excited. We're finally getting a Red Guardian update with damage. I've been needing that. I've been wanting that for a long time. I just hope if it's a little underwhelming in damage output, it sounds like it's going to be fun, but I hope if it's a little underwhelming in damage output, that they'll still bump up their damage a little bit more later, just to kind of get them closer to being more like right under a champ, right? So that they can be real viable in PvE and stuff too. Cheers! See you guys soon.